My main struggles were two things. The first one is that I had been a, problem solver for big clients globally for 25 years, but I couldn't solve those same problems for myself. And that just really caught me off guard. And then my second issue, main issue anyway, was that I'm a father of three. I'm an entrepreneur, have a couple businesses. And I was really struggling with this idea of what it means to be a man in modern society. And I had a lot of questions about the values that we were raised on as men. And that really perplexed me before I started. From the business sense, I had one really successful business with my wife, but then I was also trying to make a new business for myself. And I just kept getting in my own way. Like I'm constantly getting in my own way, and I couldn't get stuff done that historically I would totally blow the doors off these issues if I wasn't my own client. When it came to that question about what it means to be a man and, modern times, I just found myself always like questioning myself, the actions I was doing as a dad. And I just kind of was always pulling on myself, like, should I do this or should I do that? And I don't know, it just kind of always had this cloud of uncertainty with the way I was doing things with my boys. I knew what I wanted to be, but I couldn't get there for some reason. So for myself as a creator, like an entrepreneur, when I was doing it for clients, I was known as being fearless, the one that did crazy things. And I thought I was just naturally that way. But what became apparent was that I wasn't. I had these fears that I wasn't doing things. So when I started noticing myself not doing something, I just made it a point to just do it no matter what. Just do it and get it done as soon as possible, as fast as possible, as imperfect as possible. Just get it done so I can move on. What I was looking for when it comes to being, a father, a husband, was I was looking for this more gentle approach, or the stronger approach that was kinder to dealing with all of the pressure that gets thrown into you or thrown onto you, trying to be a dad to three boys, or trying to be a husband to a wife that, is a really strong business owner and leader, and how to make all of this work when you yourself also have strong aspirations. It was just a lot. And that code that we're taught to be manly men didn't work for me. So I was looking for something that was strong, but, empathetic, nice, just like good. And I couldn't figure out what that was. So I met Yassine a few years ago at a weekend event. And then through him, I met Ben. And what kind of like caught my attention with the Awakened Men was the language and the way they went about it. There was a certain, again, I'll use that word empathy, but there was a kindness to it. All of the other performance groups I had found were still kind of had this alpha male kind of BS dominance to it, which I really have zero interest in anymore. That's what caught me first. And then when we started talking, it just kind of, there was this take that the Awakened Men had was way more thoughtful and just way less trample everything and sort it out later kind of like alpha approach, which is what I was looking for. I wanted to be smart and strong, but I wanted to do it with an air of kindness. And I hadn't been able to find that until I met everyone here. What has worked great for me is some of the days, like with Yassine, for example, are these really like high level 35,000 foot views on being a man in modern days, but using a lot of history and a lot of psychology to kind of answer those things that were bugging me, things I couldn't figure out. And then other days with like Ben or Pete will do really proactive, like nuts and bolts kind of things that take some of these higher level concepts and make them more practical. And then doing it within the group, the other members of the group will say something and you go, oh my goodness, I do that. And you just kind of learn that you're not really the only person going through this. It's just a variation on a theme with other people's problems in another part of the world. Like I think that's a great thing that it's other men from all over the world. And that I love the fact that the gentleman in India or the guy in Berlin is having the exact same problems I am here in Canada. I think there's a couple of things for me that stand out in the biggest changes I've made. One is, recognizing I actually had fears about the things that I did because I didn't realize that I was afraid to do some things, which really caught me off guard. The second would be, is we always talk about knowing doing gap. And I've been able to really close that knowing doing gap a lot. I now come up with an idea I have a timeline and I execute it as quickly as possible, unless I run into that stupid fear thing, which catches me off guard, but then I just act faster and try to get it done as fast as possible. And all of that has really just calmed me down. Like I get more done. I get it done more efficiently. And then when I go home to my kids and my wife, I'm not thinking about work or thinking about what I didn't get done. I can just be present with them. And I'm just calmer, more their dad, which is required when you have 3 boys under the age of 9. Well, personally, I'm just more even keeled and I'm less reactionary, which is great. I don't know, I'm just more forgiving. Like I was even in a car accident the other day and it was not even my fault. And I acted to get out of it, but she still hit me. And I was like, at the end of it, I looked at the amount of damage and I'm like, you know what? Just have a good day. Like this is not a big deal. And I've been able to separate the big problems from the little problems, and my reaction to them and my solves for those types of issues are now in tune with the scale of the problem, as opposed to before it was like things would just throw you off. It was always an overreaction. And I feel like my response to life is more accurate to the scale of sometimes the challenge or the problem or whatever. One of the biggest changes is my wife just comments that I'm more fun than I used to be. I'm more fun like I used to be when, the younger version of me, which I think is a big deal. That says a lot. When I'm at home at night, I put my kids to bed every night, and it's like they expect and want me to crawl into bed with them and give them a cuddle and lay there with them and read them stories, talk to them for a minute before they go to bed. And when I do that, my mind isn't anywhere else but there. That is not something that I could say years ago at all. Also because I wasn't even there. I was working. But all of that has kind of happened because I have learned while being a part of this program to get my work done during a certain number of hours, and it's done and my brain is quiet and I can just live the rest of my life. And that is a gigantic change for me. Another thing is I always used to walk around talking to myself, rehearsing meetings, things like that. And I quit talking to myself. Like I no longer do any of this weird mental prep that I used to do, these practice like scenarios. I see much clearer now than I think I ever have, which is kind of a game changer because it just makes me so much more efficient. I've gotten so much more done in general with much less trauma over the last few months.